right? That's what we do here every Sunday, 7 p.m. West African time. We talk about the economy, we talk about personal finance, and we want to make all that discussion personal and reflective, and of course, should we say, usable information for you to work with during the week and of course during the year. This week, this session, we're talking microeconomics, right? And of course, macroeconomics is the macro, the big, the top down. That's what we're doing. We're not doing the micro side. We're doing the big indicators, right? That sort of direct your day-to-day economic decisions. So we're talking inflation, we're talking GDP, we're talking oil output. We want to get that discussion in, right? Because once we get the microeconomics in, then it's easier for us to then talk about the things that sort of make your economic plan easier to digest and of course to understand. Again, we do have a lot of visuals we're going to share today as we go along. So if you guys want to follow up, that's going to be fantastic. Remember, we're also on YouTube. I've shared the link on YouTube. If you go to the Twitter page, you will then see the YouTube link. I like YouTube because I can share the slides that we're going to talk around. That way you can sort of follow and have a visual to sort of guide you as we go along, right? So that's essentially what we're. So if you go on Twitter, you would see the slide that we are working with, and then of course you can just simply follow. Like I said, we're doing microeconomics, the macro side, right? And what we want to do tonight is to talk around those key economic indicators. We want to understand what they are. We want to understand how they play into the overall budget of Nigeria, and then how that is going to play into your own individual budget. That's what we want to do today. So let's start off. I'm going to share on Twitter, because I know most of you guys are on Twitter. I'm going to share the slide that I want to use today. Sort of like it's a mix of both the CBN and Budget It. I want to just again thank them. Budget It does lots of fantastic visuals. So what I've done here is to take something from Budget It and of course something from the CBN. I will try to put it together, right? Because that's going to give us what Nigeria wants to achieve in the year 2026. So if you are on if you're on Twitter, you would see what I have shared. It's the Budget It, and of course the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria's own macroeconomic forecast for 2026. Now, if we just do the space on just this slide alone, I think we are successful, because this slide alone tells us all that we want to know about how Nigeria wants to set up its finances in 2026. And as you can see, it's going to essentially drive your own personal spending, your own personal budgeting, even the tax policies and all that. It's just going to drive you guys. So again, I'm just going to share on YouTube, and then we'll just start. And I think you're going to find it very, very interesting to see how these things all sort of tally. Okay, so if you look at what we've shared, right, you see on the left, that's the Central Bank of Nigeria's macroeconomic picture for 2026. That's what the Central Bank of Nigeria. Then you see the key anchors for 2026. That's what the central bank is telling you is going to drive the 2026 economy for Nigeria. On the right, you see the summary of the budget for 2026 done by Budget. You see also the key projections that the federal government is proposing to have for 2026. You see the oil production, the oil price, the exchange rate, and then you see a summation of the revenues, deficits, and of course, where we want to spend. These two charts are your most important charts for 2026, because it tells you everything you want to know. It tells you where you should invest your money. It tells you what the government is thinking of doing in 2026. So that way you can sort of follow the money, but of course avoid the bottlenecks. And you can see how realistic, if possible, right, the government's own plans are. If the government's plans aren't realistic, of course we're going to find them out today. So let's just start off by looking at what the government wants to do in terms of macroeconomics. And again, macroeconomics is a connective tissue. There is nothing singular, not just in macroeconomics, but also in economics. There's nothing singular. You can't look at, right, without looking at its effects, right, on the economy, on GDP, on output. You can't look at GDP without looking at, say, consumption or debt. They are all connected. So when one is doing well, it affects the other. When one is doing poorly, it also pulls down the other. So it's all this connective tissue that make up the economy that we want to talk around today. Now, if you start with what the central bank is saying, they are essentially saying that they want to have a GDP growth rate of about 4.49. And while the central bank's table, they will give you both the 2025 and of course 2024, and then give you 2026, what their outlook is for Nigeria. So we are saying we want to grow at about 4.49. GDP means output. Look at it as if you have a family. Your family has got 200 million members, and you're essentially saying that that entire family of 200 million family members is going to produce an output that, if you take to percentage terms, is going to be 4.49% for the whole of 2026. The problem is that your family is growing. You're having new babies of about 3%. So every year that family produces babies. If you take it to percentage, it's going to be about 3% every year. So clearly what you're then seeing is that if you then have a family that is growing at 3%, but you are saying that your outlook, your output is going to be at 4.46, you're already seeing a gap already there. You are seeing that you might just have just a little bit left for your family to consume. Because your family, first of all, has to eat. Let's say you make maize. If you produce maize, you first of all have got to eat that maize you produce before you even export that maize. So if you're making maize of, if you use percentage terms, 4,000 kilos, and your family is eating 3,000 kilos, you only have 1,000 to sell to generate wealth. So the 4,000 looks like a lot. But when you consider that you have 3,000 kilos to eat locally, then of course it tells you that the economy is not really, it's not growing as fast as it should. If you look at context, 10 years ago when you were in 2014, right, the same household that you had, your same household was producing 6%, 8% output. And remember, the population growth then was still the same, 2.93. So when you produce 6 and 8%, you fed yourself and you had enough to export, which is why your economy expanded, which is why in 2014, that was the richest your family had ever been. So in Nigeria's history, 2014 was the richest that Nigeria had ever been. And that's why Nigeria was rich, because we had an output, low inflation, and of course the output was growing far more than the population. That's what was going on. And that's what you see CBN is saying that we're going to grow by 4.49, which is good because remember, in the last 2 years, we've grown less than 4%. So 4.4% here is actually an improvement on where we are coming from. The problem is that it's just breaking the population numbers, right? It's just breaking through that population numbers. The next thing is the central bank is talking about is the annual inflation rate of 12%. That's what the CBN is saying, that listen, we're going to bring inflation down, or we have brought inflation down from 38% down to 12%. Now, what is inflation? People think it's just very, very easy. Oh, if prices go up, that's inflation. Inflation is very, very difficult to describe. We see the effects and we call that inflation, but what inflation is very, very difficult to say what it is. Because it's two things. One, its price is going up, but two, it's also output not keeping up with demand. So when you hear Nigeria say there's lots of inflation because we're printing money, it's half true. There's inflation because we're printing money, yes. But the bigger cause of inflation in Nigeria is that there's no output. When the output of this family is not sufficient to feed the family, hence the price of that corn that they produce becomes expensive. I'll give you a clear example. If you go during harvest season to, say, Jigawa State, and they harvest a lot of onions, right? In that month of the harvest in Jigawa State, the price of onions will be 10 kobo for a basket. 10 kobo. Not even 10 naira, 10 kobo. It's literally free. Irrespective of the amount of naira in circulation, the price of a basket of onions in Jigawa during onion harvest season will remain at 10 kobo. It will never go up because there's just so much onions around the place that you cannot increase the price of onions. You see the point I'm making? So if there were no onions in Jigawa and you then printed more naira, then the price of onions will go up because there are no onions and you've printed lots of naira. So the scarce onions in Jigawa, more money will chase them. So you then have that inflation. But if you have sufficient onions in Jigawa, irrespective of what you print, the price of onions will stay the same. So in Nigeria's case, what's causing the inflation in Nigeria is not really that we are printing money. Yes, the Buhari administration printed about 22 trillion. But the problem is really a lack of output. That this family, remember, they are producing about 4.4. That's their output. They are producing 4.4 tons of corn. Meanwhile, their population is about 3.1 growth. So already you see very, very small window for them to eat. That's why the price of things are going up. Now, when you say inflation is going to fall to 12.9, you are not saying prices are going to come down. You are saying that the rate of increase in prices is going to come down. So essentially what's going to happen is this. The price of corn has gone up by 38%. It hasn't come down. But the income of this household has not kept pace because the income of the household is still at that 70,000 naira a month minimum. We haven't increased minimum wage, but inflation went up to 38%. We rebased it back to about 20 something. Now we're planning on 12%. It doesn't mean prices have come down to 12. It means that the rate of increase of those prices has come down to 12. So imagine this household again. Price of corn has gone up by 38%. It hasn't come down, but their income is staying flat at 70,000 naira a month. Again, we're using the composite numbers, right? That's what we have. That's what the problem we have in Nigeria today. So we have the low output, we have the low inflation, but prices have not kept pace with that. Let's now go to debt to GDP. So according to the Central Bank of Nigeria, we're going to be about 34%. Again, this number is very, very good because when you consider all the loans Nigeria has taken, we are still at that 30 number, either 31, 35. We are still at that 30 number. I think our target is about 30. We are still at 34. Not too bad, not too shabby. Again, the problem with this is that GDP does not pay debt, right? Revenues pay debt. And this family has borrowed so much because remember, they're not making enough output. So they had to borrow. If you look at the chart on the right, you will see the borrowing for 2026 alone is about 23 trillion. On the right, you see the budget 8 deficit number. That deficit number means that we have to borrow 23 trillion. 20 trillion means you're going to borrow nearly 2 trillion a month. 2 trillion a month. I hope you can see my slides now, YouTube guys, yeah? 2 trillion a month. That's the problem. So whilst the debt to GDP has come down, the actual revenue paying your debts is up. Nearly 2 trillion a month we're going to borrow in 2026. What about the FX reserve? The FX reserves are fantastic. 51 billion. We're going to have about 51 billion. This is a fantastic figure because it shows confidence. So this family that is borrowing money to feed, in their bank account, they have $51 billion in quote, right? So when they go to the store to borrow money, they're going to say, listen, storeman, I just have temporary insolvency. I'm just broke, but I have money. I have 51 billion in the bank. So give me credit to buy food today. And the storeman will say, yeah, I see you have 51 billion. I can give you credit. That's what foreign reserves do. It's confidence to the naira. It's confidence to the individuals to go out and do deals because you've got about 51 billion. Now, foreign reserves are not savings. Foreign reserves are not owned by the federal government or by the federation. These foreign reserves are really owned by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So I hear you guys saying, but the Central Bank of Nigeria is owned by the federal government. No, not really. The central bank is very, very independent. The money in the central bank is not owned by the federal government or by the federation. These are claims on the federal government, sorry, on the Central Bank of Nigeria for assets brought in. So when the central bank sells bonds to the Europeans, it gets dollars. Those dollars go to the foreign reserves. That claim on that dollar is going to come tomorrow, right? So the central bank is saying, I borrowed euro bonds. I'm going to pay back euro bonds. So that money is part of what they borrowed and part of what they're going to pay back. So the central bank's point is that we're going to borrow money today, invest, create output, create growth, pay back with the growth created back to the Eurobond. That's why you see that 51 billion. It's a good number, but remember, it's not savings. It represents the capacity of that family to borrow. So that's a good number. But again, it's not savings. The family has got to attract what we call foreign direct investments and not just foreign portfolio. Portfolio is short term, direct is long term. The last one that I think is the key, because if you guys do engineering, you hear them say critical path. You might have lots of processes, but there's something called the critical path, or the most critical thing in the economy, or in the factory, or in the household. What is the most critical thing in Nigeria? It's this oil production numbers. It's the oil production, it's the oil price. But the oil production is what we can control. Nigeria does not control oil prices. Nigeria controls oil production. So the central bank is saying that we're going to produce about 1.7 million barrels per day. Everything I've said, output, GDP growth, average inflation rate, debt to GDP, foreign reserves, all depend on this number, the oil output number. So central bank is saying 1.71. If you go to budget 8, in the budget, the federal government is saying they're going to produce 1.84 barrels. Forget the price for now. Just look at what we're going to produce. OPEC target is 1.5 million barrels per day. Nigeria is still at 1.4, 1.5. So we haven't even passed OPEC target, right? We want to produce in this year 1.7. Budget's already saying 1.8. What's the implication? 1.8 in the budget is what allows Nigeria to go borrow nearly 2 trillion a month. So when you say you want to make or pump out 1.84 million barrels a day, that's you are saying I'm going to get revenues from selling 1.84 at $64 a barrel. That's what you're saying. And because I'm going to get the revenues, look at it, of 34 trillion, I will then borrow 2 trillion nearly every month. So that's the story. See the story now? Because you're going to borrow 1.84 trillion and you're going to pump out 1.84 million barrels a day and sell it at $64 a barrel, you are going to get revenues of 34 trillion. And because you get revenues of 34 trillion, you want to go borrow 23 trillion. So what happens if your revenues do not meet your borrowing or your forecast? Your deficit is still going to go up, remember, because you already spent on salaries. You are already going to spend on salaries. But your revenues are not going to come in. You will always have 100%, should we say, what's the word now? You will always achieve 100% of your salaries, recurrent side. Is the capital side that we always struggle because you have to pay salaries, but you don't have to build the road. That's the honest truth. So when we look at these two numbers, you can see that Nigeria is basing everything we have talked around, GDP, inflation, on selling 1.7 or 1.84 billion barrels a day. Let's assume Nigeria sells 2 million barrels a day. Let's give it Nigeria that Nigeria even goes far beyond what the CBN is saying and what the central bank is saying. Let's assume Nigeria does 2 million barrels a day. What's the problem with this number? Is the next number there, the oil price. Nigeria is budgeting about $64 a barrel. Now, just yesterday, we saw America invade Venezuela. And everybody has now knows that Venezuela has got the largest deposits of crude oil in the entire world, more than Saudi Arabia. But that's just deposits. That's not oil. There's no oil. Venezuela has no oil to sell today, right? The Americans are already in Venezuela. But what's the problem with that? China was the number one buyer of Venezuelan oil. So now that America is in charge of Venezuelan oil, they won't sell to China. They're going to sell to Americans first, right? So Americans will get cheaper oil, can export more of their own oil, because now when they get Venezuelan oil, they can blend their own oil and export more. Same with Saudi, they can export more. Russia and Ukraine are fighting a war today. If Russia and Ukraine achieve a peace, where do you think oil prices are going to go? Are they going to go up? Are they going to come down? They're clearly going to go down. Even if they go down to 60, your projections say you want to sell 1.84 at 64 to get 34 trillion. Other things are going to go in there. There's taxes, there's VAT that are going to be 34. I get that. But Nigeria is a mono export economy. Oil revenues, and I like the way the CBN uses the word. CBN does not use oil and non-oil. CBN uses resource income. If you go to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, they use oil and non-oil. It's very confusing because according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, LMA Petrochemical Company is a non-oil business. Doesn't make any sense. How can a petrochemical company be non-oil? But CBN defines it in terms of resource revenues and non-resource revenues. So look at the story. If oil prices go down to 60, which can happen because today, what are oil prices today? Brent crude, 60. So Brent crude today is 60. Why are we predicting 64 when we've seen Venezuela, we've seen that there might be peace in Russia? Because if we overshoot this budget, what then happens is that we are overshooting revenues. And if we overshoot revenues, what happens? What happens is that we then have a bloated revenue figure, a bloated expenditure figure. Again, look at the quote. I'm going to just share again so the folks on Twitter see, but the folks on YouTube can see that quote there. Nigeria budgeted this year to earn about 54 trillion. And they wanted to spend about 54 trillion, revenues of 40 trillion. What did Nigeria actually get? 10 trillion. 10. So Nigeria wanted to spend 40 trillion. They wanted to get revenues of 40 trillion. They end up getting about 10 trillion. That's crazy. And that why did that happen? Because we over bloated our revenue figures. We said we're going to sell oil at $75 a barrel, and then we also said that we're going to sell about 2 million barrels of crude oil as well. And that's why we then overshot that budget, because we planned too optimistic. We said we're going to sell 2 million barrels of oil at $75 a barrel, which is just clearly out of us. Not going to happen. So because of that, we have a deficit. If you look at that number, it's 40 trillion revenues and we only got 10 trillion. That's crazy. So let me just share that for the folks on Twitter can also follow, and you can see the folly of being too aggressive in your budgeting. Because if you don't do that, if you don't budget properly, that's what happens. So that's going to be my next tweet, guys. Just go and look at that quote. They're quoting Premium Times. It's from Budgeted, and it just gives you the summation of what we're talking about. Why we're having this space again as usual, right? So again, according to the Minister of Finance, we had a 40 trillion revenue target, but we actually got 10 trillion. Why? Because the same thing, guys. We over promised that we were going to do 75 barrels at 2 million, and we only got about where we go. Oil price today is about $60. So that just tells you what we're doing today is very, very important. We can't do budgets on vibes. We can't be optimistic about budgeting. We can't approach the budget the way we approach politics. You can't go and say, oh, I want to be positive. Let me be positive so people will feel positive. The budget is supposed to be a very, very cold number, a very, very conservative number. Because if you have a budget that says your benchmark oil price is $45 a barrel, that's fantastic. If you make more than 45, that goes to your revenues. Sorry, that goes to your buffers, your excess crude account. But if you don't do that, that's when we're gonna have a problem. All right, so let me stop there. I've spent about 26 minutes talking. We're going to talk about inflation in particular. But let me get my good friend Cyrus. I've got Sir Black. Sir Black, I'm adding you. I'm not sure what's going on. It's not letting you speak. If you want to speak around just what I've shared so far, looking at the Central Bank of Nigeria budget and of course the federal government of Nigeria's budget, please do so. Cyrus, you've got. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, good evening, Carlo. Wonderful space as usual. I'm doing very well. How about you?
Yeah, Cyrus. So what do you see, Cyrus? I mean, the point I've made today is that the budget number one is unrealistic because of the oil price, and we've made the point that the critical macroeconomic number there is the oil production number. They've brought it down now from 2 million to 1.8 for the federal government, 1.7 for central bank. But what do you think? Is this still optimistic? Are we still on the right path in terms of the macro side? What do you think?
Well, I think I agree with you on the fact that at least they are getting consciously optimistic, unlike 2025 where we had these ambitious budget that everybody was laughing at that is not possible. Well, probably it's the inflation forecast in 2025 based on the base, they have 15% inflation target. But in terms of other metric like output, which are things that this cannot do for you, you have to pump or you can't base on figure.
Yeah.
They did not get that. They did not get that, and also obviously the revenue part that you mentioned, it was also laughable. But honestly, this year, of course, there's a little bit of disparity between what CBN is saying and what the budget forecast is in terms of production, 1.8 versus 1.7. Somewhere in between
1.71 and 1.84, correct?
Yeah, 1.84. So what I did not see this CBN report is the price that they peg it at. The federal government peg it on at 64.85 barrel.
Yeah.
It's a little bit dicey because there's a lot of focus, probably about 2026 and 2027, the price of oil, those things. But you cannot really tell these things, different things happen with nobody saw the Venezuela thing coming, and probably what we might anticipate, like in the first quarter, is that there might be some kind of just staying within the bandwidth of $60 per barrel, $64 per barrel. So it's still a little bit high. $64 is still a little bit high. I would have lived at $60 or $61 thereabout. And given that Nigeria had a very high production cost, the left price also very, very low. So that's also a net advantage for us. But one thing I feel like, two things basically, I think like CPM probably will be just being cautious or being optimistic, I would say, as a central bank, is the foreign reserve. One, I think probably they are not projected, they are not, of course they are, the global inflation rate is going to go down, right? So you see big market like the United States, England, France, and others like that, reducing policy rate, NPR and stuff. And what that means is that there's going to be a redirection of capital.
Yeah.
And so if you are targeting a $51.04 billion reserve, currently you're about 46. Is it 46 now?
Yeah, about. Yeah. It's about.
Around 46. Yeah, around 40. For the last time I checked, was like 44, 45. Let's give them 46 on gross. I don't know how the CBN intends to add about 5 billion increase in reserve in a year.
But it's easy. It's easy, Cyrus. If you issue bonds and you are paying 7%, you can get 100 billion in a year. I think it's very easy to raise your foreign reserve.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that they will do that at the same time they're going to reduce debt to GDP to 34.66%.
Good point.
So it's either you go to the capital market to get up revenue, to get up to get up debt. It's basically debt.
Yeah.
Or and get your debt to GDP increase, or you stay moderate and manage your reserve. So it's a bit that area.
Yeah.
Inflation figure 12%, 12.9%.
Don't worry, Cyrus, pause. We're going to talk about inflation specially. I have a special slide for inflation because that's one of the questions I get. People always say, is a number real? And then what is the effect of inflation in my budget? Because once we get these numbers, you then see how it translates to your own personal budget. But Cyrus, you made a key point in that I've done a YouTube video. If you want to watch and understand these numbers, I've done a YouTube video where I talked about the foreign portfolio investments and the foreign direct investments. And over 5 years, in Nigeria has not attracted foreign direct investments. What that means is that we've not had long-term money come to Nigeria. All the money you see come to Nigeria is coming to buy stocks and bonds. It's coming from Nigerians, about 40% from Nigerians, but also from the just investors. So foreign portfolio investments was driving our foreign reserves. What happens if tomorrow oil prices fall? If you are a white boy, in quotes, you invest for your pension fund and you are chasing alpha, chasing yield, and you invest in Nigeria because it's an oil producing company, oil producing nation that has a lot of foreign reserves, and then oil prices go to about 59, you get spooked. You be like, oh, these guys might not be able to pay back, so you sell your Nigerian bonds and you take the money back. Then the more you sell Nigerian bonds, the more the yields for Nigerian bonds start to go up, which means Nigeria is borrowing more expensive. So that vicious circle of we're borrowing more to maintain the foreign reserves. So we have 51 billion at what cost? At what cost? We have to go and get more diaspora remittances or more dollars that do not cost us a lot of interest to keep in Nigeria. If we don't do that, we're going to meet our foreign reserve target, but at what cost? That's really the problem in Nigeria so far, that we're not keeping or we're not attracting long-term cheap financing. That's the problem. If we don't attract long-term cheap financing, it's difficult then for the CBN to then deploy this forex into the local economy. That's the problem I see, Cyrus.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you completely that, it's not even stock. Stock is better if people are buying equity in companies, and they are retained for a certain amount of period of time. But most of it, about 80% of the portfolio inflow into the country has been mainly hot money inflow, which is the bond part of it, and that means that you are just financing your revenue with debt. So I agree with you on that. Another thing that people are not paying attention to is the money supply, because if people really cannot relate to it, to what of that, how does that concern me, right? Yeah. Because Nigeria has not really been able to, put at bay or checkmate its supply of money. So what you see is that the increase in supply of money, for example, from 2023 till now, we had about 54 trillion naira in money supply in 2023. Now we had about 120 trillion the last time I checked. Yeah. And what that means is because the government keeps going to this capital market to release funds and stuff like that. And it's a very huge driver of inflation. You said something about inflation the last time, and two figures I started talking about in Nigeria, two main figures. Number one is the labor figure. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot have any conversion around it, because if you want to discuss figure, you have to discuss in context of how it affects the economy. Yeah. If you have 4% unemployment rate, everybody should go and sleep. Nigeria is doing well, right? Yeah, exactly. And now everybody should just go and enjoy their life, because you have 4%. So that means that in every 100 Nigeria, just only about 4 of them is without a job. So I mean, we're under working Nigerians. So where is the conversation there? They literally killed that particular data so that people cannot talk about. There was a report by I can't remember one of these intelligence companies that says that about 5% of Nigerians have high quality jobs. That means jobs that have disposable income whereby they can spend on other things except food. So if that is the reality, and you're telling me that 4% is the unemployment rate, it doesn't make any sense. So that's why I started talking about it, but it doesn't. And the second one that NBS did recently, which is the inflation figure, and as spoken about it, or in details on this another place. You also have spoken about it that you can't tell me that inflation dropped from about 32% to about 14%. It was not 14% at the end of the year with November inflation figure. And you do not see that in NPL, you don't see that any drastic drop in prices of any of the goods and services. And then you didn't see that in reduction in money supply. Yeah. Right? You didn't see that none of the metrics that determine how inflation should be measured. Yeah. But you want me to believe, because you are a data authority for the government, that inflation has dropped drastically, to 10%, to 14%. So the inflation does not make sense, Carlo. I don't know what to say about it, but the 10% seems a bit realistic for the CBN partial.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, so put the inflation figure up now. So we've shared inflation figure on Twitter and on YouTube. So let's look at the inflation figure. We're falling from 34.6 in November last year, 2024, to 16%. So from 34 to 16, that's what we've gone down. And we're targeting 12%. So again, it is difficult because when we're finance professionals, we don't want to talk bad about the data agency, because that would mean that, you are talking bad because you don't like the numbers. But again, I ask people that are listening on this space, if you had a child and that child did not work from Monday to Saturday, then on Sunday, that child went downstairs and washed the car, maybe your car or the neighbor's car, and the neighbor paid him whatever, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 100,000 for washing his car. It didn't work from Monday to Saturday. On Sunday, he took 1 hour, washed the car, and got 50,000 naira. Is that child employed? That's the question. If you say that child is employed, then you are siding with the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics that states if you work 1 hour in 1 week, you are employed. It doesn't make any sense. We don't do hourly work in Nigeria. They are copying America, but Americans do hourly. We don't do hourly. Number two, 1 hour in a week. Is that how Americans define their own unemployment? 1 hour in a week, and that's if you are looking for. It doesn't pass the smell test.
We don't do hourly minimum wage either.
We don't do all that.
So if you are going to use the metric hourly output of work, therefore you are going to use hourly minimum wage. What we use as a minimum wage metric is a monthly minimum wage. So our minimum wage model already assume that people work on a monthly basis.
Let's assume that guy gets paid 70,000 minimum wage for washing a car. Let's assume that is happening. But is that guy working 1 hour does he work Monday to Saturday, works 1 hour on Sunday? Are we really saying that guy is employed? Is that the argument that the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics wants us to believe? Really? That guy is employed? It doesn't make sense. By text is employed, but it doesn't make any sense. So look at the numbers again. So inflation has gone from 34% to 16%. The question is why? Why have inflation dropped down? I've explained it numerous times. When we measure inflation in Nigeria, we're using what we call the consumer price index. All that is that we take a basket, we put things in the basket, and then we measure the rate of rise of that basket. So what's in Nigeria's basket? We have MTN, we have DSTV, we have shoe, we have this, we have food, tubers of yam, pepper, rice. Food used to make up 51% of that basket. So if you measure inflation in Nigeria, 51% is food, which means if food goes up, the basket goes up, inflation goes up. So what the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics do? They rebased the basket. That's what that rebasing you hear means. They rebased the basket. They took food from 51% to about 40%. So now, when you then have price of yam and rice go up, it only affects the basket by 40%, not by 51%. Because of that, inflation tends to go down. Number two, if you also import a lot of food, you are also bringing down that 40% in that basket. That's why you see inflation going down But the central bank don't really responded because they understand that the prices are coming down. The CPI is coming down because you are importing food and you have rebased the basket. In not my words, if you go to the last CBN report, page 10, you will see the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics say, NBS say, that the rate of inflation has gone down because of the rebasing. I'm not the one saying it, the NBS themselves are saying it. So, if we have that picture that inflation is not falling organically, it's not an organic fall in prices. It's not like in that market in Jigawa, there are more onions being produced. No, it's that they are not counting those onions. They used to count them 51%. Now they're only counting them 40%. It's just like if we're watching Arsenal, Chelsea, or whatever. If you say you're not going to count goals, you're going to count free kicks, you've changed the whole game. That's essentially what's going on with inflation. So, and it's a problem because, like I said at the very, very top, if inflation was 34%, that means prices went up. Just to say by a factor of that 34, right? If they've come down, if the CPI has come down to 16%, prices have not gone down the same. It just means the rate of increase has stopped going up and has now slowed down to 16. The goods you see in the market that the prices are going down are imported. The rice has gone down in price because it's imported, but the local production of food hasn't gone up. So we're using our foreign reserves, we're borrowing dollars to import food and we have cheaper food. Not a bad idea. I basically say it's a good idea. But what's the end goal? Is the end goal to be short term and then get the military boys to go take care of the insurgency so the farmers can go back to the market? Or are we just doing this because we want to just win the next election at a lower inflation numbers? Because we just can't have inflation that the interest rate does not come down. Again, if you're a borrower, if you're an SME guy, you're a CEO, you run your own company today, you know if you go to the bank has not reduced your interest rate. They have not. So what is the point of having inflation go from 34% to 16% if you cannot go to a bank and say, oh, inflation has gone down, so I want you to reduce my interest rate? If it's not reduced, then it doesn't make any sense. Cyrus, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Like any thinking Nigerian who like just pay attention to what's going on will tell you that that's the case. Yeah, so there's nothing that anyone is going to tell you that is this, is that. It's not true. You are tinkling with figures, and it's so painful because it does not solve anything. And you mentioned earlier in your submission that the issue in Nigeria is output, right? That's another word for that would be productivity, increase in supply of local production and others like that. If you're not doing that and you're just thinking numbers, you're thinking that you're doing something, you're not doing anything because the real economy itself is not growing. That's one thing that people need to understand, that what Nigeria needs is inclusive and disruptive growth in different areas, like we had in 2025, like we had in 2005, like we had in 2014. We need more of those things, that new sectors emerging, new branches of industries, emerging and creating more jobs. Not you taking with figures. And but it is what it is. Another thing that I would like to mention, from the CBN report is the revenue, like the revenue source.
Yeah.
You said it also. If you look at the revenue source, even with the so-called tax, Nigerian tax, Nigerian FRS generating more tax. Like I said the other day, it's oil taxes, not necessarily it's oil and import taxes. They're not necessarily any import levies, not necessarily any magic that is happening, and then the windfall of devaluation of the currency. But if you look at what the CBN says here, it says that about 53% or so, 58%, of the revenue that the government in 2025 came from resource-based revenue, and 98% of that, Kalu, is
Oh, you saw that. You saw that, right? You saw that. That's why I was making the
Yeah.
point that the CBN uses the word resource based. They don't use oil and non-oil, which is a better way to classify it. Because the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics does. I want to be polite. The way they are classifying this is totally wrong. LMA Petrochemical, according to Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, is a non-oil company. It doesn't make any sense. How can a petrochemical be non-oil because they don't sell crude oil? It doesn't make sense. We're deceiving ourselves on that note. Yeah.
Yeah, so they get 98%, and then even if you look at the non-oil, the real non-oil now, according to the CBN, only about 43 or so percent of it comes directly from taxes, right? The rest came from the independent sources from government that most likely oil licensing, and all these other things that they get money from, all those external funding and things like that. So what that means is that a huge chunk of our revenue, even into 2026, still will come from that oil. So, and then it's an excuse to say OPEC gives us 1.5 million barrels per day because we don't really need to follow OPEC. What we need to do is produce and supply the global market 1.5 million. That's what OPEC asks from us. Produce and supply global market 1.5 million. You can produce 2 million and take 500,000 out of it per day. And if to that day, another local refineries, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't affect the oil prices. It doesn't disrupt the market.
Yeah.
It does not cause any other issue. The problem is lack of production. So there's no pay on what you can produce. It's just go on.
Let me put you on the spot, Sarah. So if you were advising, if someone came to you and you were advising the person, right, and the economy, this person works in Nigeria. This person is a banker. His wife works for the government. So his wife earns money from the federal government. This banker guy earns money from the productivity of Nigeria. And they are both telling you they want to go into this new project next year. They want to borrow money to invest in this project, right? And you are looking at these numbers that are saying that the revenues of Nigeria are going to come from resource based. Then Nigeria is going to also borrow. And you are saying that the revenue numbers might not jive, that the revenues might not happen. So that means their source of income, which is the government, the bank guy's source of income is the economy moving. And the economy might not move, there's no oil. The lady works for the government. She might get her salary, but it might be delayed. There might be no allowances. How would you approach your advice to this couple? Would you tell them, sure, go ahead and borrow, be expansive? Would you say be cautious? I think the clouds out there are getting darker. How would you approach your advice to this?
Yeah, so my first advice would be, you have to wait till like second quarter of 2026 to have rate cut. I think the cost of borrowing should be lower. There's no the best time to invest in Nigeria is only yesterday. So there's no if you wait, it's going to be more difficult and things are going to be more messy. But also,
so you are saying that the CBN is going to cut rates in 2026, and that this cut.
I don't have to say they said it themselves. I don't have to say it. They said it themselves.
Cut rates to what? Rates are 27. Would they cut it to 23?
That's the dicey one. What I think is that they may cut it gradually, right? Probably by the end of that they will do like maybe 26, just 1% or 100 basis points about.
So
and then see how things move. Of course, they themselves are obligated to macroeconomic fundamentals. So if the fundamentals are changing, in a good direction, in the positive, they are most likely to cut rate. But if not changing, of course, the CBN the current CBN is a very hawkish and a very courteous CBN, right? A very the word is orthodox, right? And so they're not so eager, to disrupt things, so they are going to consider the fundamentals. One of it will be what happened at the end of Q1, what is the GDP growth at the end of Q1, are we still maintaining
Yeah.
And what exactly? So that would be one of what exactly is the inflation figure at the end of P1 and other fundamentals like that. Also the global economy, because the rate also affects one of the things that they are using the rate to do is to drive, capital to the country.
Gotcha.
And so they're going to look at the global economy and things like that. So all of those things are going to play that. So I would say, if you want to invest in Nigeria, if you have the safety net of getting loan at 30%, 32%, go ahead and do it.
Wow.
But if you are someone with limited capital, limited financial firepower, I would say you wait a bit, get a loan, and then look for the climate to invest, and also look for the sector to invest. So where exactly is some kind of activities going on in Nigeria now? The first one is real estate.
Cyrus. 30%. You want to borrow at 30%.
That is the rate. That is the rate currently.
I mean, if you do real estate at 30%, I mean that's 30% annually. So if they borrow $1 million, they are going to pay back 300,000. They're going to pay back first year before they build that house. They're going to pay back to the bank 300,000 naira. The house will not be built in 12 months. By next year, they're going to pay to the bank 600,000 naira. So then, if they borrow $1 million, they're going to pay to the bank in 24 months 600,000 naira. Abi, it's plenty.
It's plenty now.
Cyrus. Okay. Cyrus, don't go anywhere. I want to come back. Somebody's asking me a question. Kalu, you haven't talked about the tax reform. The government is going to get a lot of revenues from the tax reform. If you look at the CBN chart we shared, look on the right-hand side, you see key policy anchors. The key policy anchors for the government is the FX reforms, the PIA, that's the oil thing we're talking about, the tax reform, and of course the banking sector recapitalization. So the CBN is saying all four are going to drive these macro numbers. But you're right. Why haven't we talked specifically about the tax revenues? Because the CBN, when they do that table, they put resource and non-resource. If you look at that table, all your VAT, CIT, custom duty is quote-unquote nothing when you compare it to the revenues that come from resource side. So VAT sounds a lot. It's nothing because it goes to the states. Let's be clear here. The states as a block get more money than the federal government, the states. But the federal government is one body. The states are 36 bodies. So I think the mistake this federal government is doing is doing projects without holding the states to account. If the states are getting nearly 90% of VAT, and the federal government wants to build a road from Lagos to Calabar, if I was President Tinubu, I would say if the road is going to pass through your state, you must commit 40% of your VAT to the coastal road. If you don't commit, I will not build under your section. So if I'm building the road from Lagos to Calabar, if Akwa Ibom will give me 40% of their VAT for the road, I'll start Akwa Ibom section. If Edo will give me, I'll do Edo section. The ones that will not give me, we'll wait. We'll get to you. We'll come to you. Just wait, we'll come to you. But I wouldn't take my scarce federal government money and start to build a road that the states will enjoy and do VAT. You've got to bring the states in. That's the mistake Mr. President Tinubu is doing. It's the same political party, Abi. Why are governors leaving their parties to come to the APC if you cannot then have an APC economic plan? From Lagos to Akwa Ibom, you are going to pass through all APC states. From Lagos so Lagos is APC, Ogun is APC, Edo is APC, Delta is APC, Akwa Ibom is APC, Cross River is APC. So why can't those APC governors create a coastal road fund? Put 40% of their VAT going forward into that coastal road fund. The federal government will take 40% of its oil royalties or 100% oil royalties, put into the coastal road fund. That fund then pays the contractor or guarantees the contractor allowing the contractor to go out and borrow money, knowing that he has got money there. So when the China guys see that kind of, oh, these guys have got 40% still in the fund, they will fund him. That's the mistake they are making. The tax revenues are high, but they are not going to the federal government alone. The states are taking more of the tax revenues, but the states are 36 entities. The federal is one entity. Austin, Cyrus, hang on there. Austin, how you doing? Austin, hop right in. What's on your mind, Mr. Austin?
Okay, thank you so much, Kalu. I just to say that, I followed you for a very long time, and I appreciate what you do for Nigeria.
Thank you,
my
sir.
brother.
I appreciate you, sir.
Yeah. The question was boiling on my mind when I heard about you, that our CPI was rebased. And I was asking, this consumer
price index.
Price index was rebased. What's the basis of that? Is that a global economic practice?
You can rebase anytime you want. Why you rebase is that you rebase to the realities of the situation. So let's say your CPI, for instance, had yam, but now you are eating Indomie. So you change the weight of your CPI from yams to Indomie. That's the whole idea. So you rebase anytime you want. But the idea is that you rebase according to your situation on ground, where the consumers are spending. So if consumers are spending more on foreign education, right, then you say, okay, we're going to put that into what they are spending. You get the point I'm making, sir?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Fantastic, guys. Okay, so Cyrus, let's come back to this states and federal and the macro push, because if states are getting more money from this tax revenue, because people are looking at this and they are saying that, oh, Tinubu is going to get more money. It's the states that are going to get more money from the tax revenues, not Tinubu. Am I correct?
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. Even to add to this, that why about 30% of the import of output comes from import. And import basically is a federal government revenue, is a federal government money, let's put it that way. A huge chunk of it still go back to the state. So the state, I think right now, given the new tax reform, the state is going to get 10%, right?
No. The federal gets less. The federal gets 10. The state gets, and local governments get everything.
The state and the local get the rest. So
90%. 90%. Why hasn't Tinubu said this?
They would not use the money for that. I would be happy if the Nigerian government, some national governments start using their money for what it's supposed to be for. The problem has never been on the subnational level, at least at the state level, not the local government level, but at the state level. The problem has not necessarily been low revenue. The problem has always been that they take the money and they reallocate it to something else, like Rolls Royce, like building their own map and things like that, and hotels. And you also keep in mind that there is high election activities. And what simply means is that the state does not care about projects. The state does not care about education. They do not care about the primary healthcare, whatever. They want as much money that they can get so that they can sponsor and form whatever it is that they want in power.
But sir, this is a very simple thing I'm saying now. Why are you having governors decamp to your party if those governors cannot fund the party? The largest infrastructure project in history, Lagos to Akwa Ibom Coastal Road. The largest. Before that project, President Goodluck Ebonatan gave the largest contract in history of China was to build a railway from Lagos to the same Calabar. Largest contract, foreign contract in the history of China was given to them. We didn't do it. Before Goodluck Jonathan, President Olusegun Obasanjo gave a contract to many firms to build the east to west road to go from the same Lagos to the same Calabar. This project, 3 separate projects, this is just the latest iteration, is the same project. We just call it Coastal Project. It's the same east to west road. They moved the thing closer to the coast or away from the coast as far when they can be. But the point I'm making is, if you have from Lagos to Calabar the same government, the same party, the same governors in the same party, the same house at the federal at the state, why can't you then create this fund to fund the road? Because that's where the road will die. I see many people posting, oh, they've started the road in Calabar. Yes, on ground now. They've started the road on solid ground in Calabar. But from where you leave Calabar to Ogun, it's swamp. It's bridges. It's no longer a coastal road. It's a coastal bridge. That's why it hasn't been done all these years, folks. It's not a coastal road. It's a coastal bridge. Where's the money? They're going to have to toll that road. Toll it to who? Who will pass that road and toll? Why would they pass through a coastal road when they have a road on the mainland? Have you guys thought about this carefully? Why do you think they haven't done it before? Why do you think the Obasanjo road wasn't built? Why? Why do you think Goodluck's road wasn't built? Eventually, that coastal is going to come back to the east-west road. And that road it will almost triple Nigeria's GDP. If you have a functional road going from the west to the east, you get trade, you get VAT, you get commerce. Nigeria's GDP will just double, trade will double, growth will double. So it's a strategic project. We want it, but you're not funding it right. If you don't get the states to fund that road, it will not get done. Austin, did I answer your question about CPI? You're good, Abi. Cyrus, yeah.
Oh yeah, I am.
Fantastic. Cyrus, so we're back to this politics thing you're saying. It makes political sense to build the road. The APC can boast that they've built the largest road infrastructure in Nigeria's history. They can boast. So why aren't they doing it?
Well, I think another thing is that the governors, they could hide behind these, what is the state road, what is the federal road, what is the, what's... So they have that thing to hide behind and say, this is not their responsibility and they don't have the constitutional power or purview to fund those roads. So that might be their position that the road belongs to the federal government and they should do that, and they have other roads within their subnational
a road that will double their GDP. Because imagine now in Edo State, if you have that in Edo State, that would mean that all the trucks passing from the river state have to pass through Edo to get there. All the trucks, all the trains, all the goods. If you just simply do weighbridge or whatever, or do hotels. On the road, just do hotels. I posted Cyrus this week how America built the transnational train. They built a rail track from the Atlantic to the Pacific across America. How did they do it? They didn't tax anybody. The federal government simply went to the railway companies and said, we're going to give you 60 kilometers on the side of the rail track. 60 kilometers. So as you build, you get 60 kilometers, it's yours. So what do the rail companies do? They will build the rail track, they earn 60 kilometers of real estate for free, they sell to developers. Developers will then use the same train to bring in their wood, their cement, their workers on the same train. So the train company got revenues from the developers. Developers got land at a cheap price to build homes, and then the Americans that got those homes then got cheap homes, rode on those trains, and went into the interior to live. One policy, they kill 3 birds with 1 stone. We can do the exact same thing in Nigeria. The government can say we have a right of way because land in Nigeria is owned by the state governments. Land is owned by the state government. So President Tinubu can call an APC summit of coastal states and say, the coastal road, we're going to give right of way on, we can't do 60 kilometers, but we can do, even if it's 10 kilometers, we're going to do 10 kilometers on each side of the coastal road. And if you build that coastal road, you own that 10 kilometers. What are you going to put on that 10 kilometers? Hotels, filling stations, repair yards. There's going to be so much volume on that road that they're going to be, you drive into a motel. So if I own a hotel, what can I do? I will then go to my state governor and say, hey, state governor, I want to contribute for this 100 kilometers. And more people will come and keep on buying 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers on that road. The state can then complete the road and go to Tinubu and say, hey, President Tinubu, we want to build 100 kilometers of the coastal road in our state. Done. We're not thinking out of the box. We're waiting for the federal government to send Julius Berger to build the road. We're not thinking out of the box. Namdi always has some brilliant ideas. Namdi, what's up now?
good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing very well, sir.
Thanks as always for the insights and the perspectives. You just said right now that the Lagos Calabar Highway has the potential to double or triple GDP.
Yeah.
I want to examine and maybe even challenge that. I want to do some investment in that 13 billion. Again, have them and kind of other macroeconomic data, if it really makes sense. So we just talked about the fact that we have 1% of the population living in poverty, as defined by the $5.50 a day, and with 30% of our population in multi-dimensional poverty. We have, obviously, about the borrowing rates in Nigeria. If you're a small, medium enterprise business, you're borrowing anywhere between 2 to 4% interest rate, right? So you spend about 13 billion building this road, right? But 90%, effectively 90% of your population can't effectively optimize the usage of that road, right? Because we have to talk about the quality of movement, transport, or usage of the road. Because when you now go and build that road, your macroeconomic indicators don't show that you have small, medium-sized enterprise businesses that are going to go and borrow, create businesses, enterprises, etc., that will maximize the commercial usage of the road. So we'll have plenty of people driving keke and tokumbo, but you're not going to maximize the commercial utility of the road because your population, 90% of your population is excluded from a credit market, can borrow. And then we also now layer on the fact that about 40% of our youth, anywhere between 15 to 35, are either lacking education or untrained or completely out of work, right? So the problem sometimes that I feel that is underestimated when we say these kinds of things is that you show me your people, show me your human capital, and I'll show you your economy. You don't have the requisite human capital to create the commercial activity that will also now generate the tax revenue necessary to maintain that road. Because this is another problem. It's one thing to spend $13 billion building the road, but you have to maintain it.
I hear
and you just talked about, okay, so where's the tax revenue going to come from? If you are not optimizing the commercial utility of that road, how are you going to generate the tax revenues in order to maintain it? And this is part of the problem that we have in Nigeria in general. And this is why our road infrastructure is the way it is, because it's one thing to build it, it's another thing to maintain it. Now, this leads to my mental...
Let's address it, because it was a very good question. A lot of people liked your question. Let's address it a little bit, right? Let's go back to the American example, right? The folks that left from the east coast of America to the western, to inhabit the western lands in America, were dirt poor. They were dirt poor. What America did was to give them land for free. As farmers, as homesteaders, they used that land, and that's how today, this American, whatever, this Midwest, that's where they got their wealth from. America was the first nation on earth, remember, to give quote-unquote plebs free land. Before America, barons owned land. You work on the land, then you get. So America gave land for free.
Absolutely.
Now,
yes.
Nigeria has got. I think the last time they did the study, they said about 7 trillion. The last time this was done, there's a guy called Hernando de Soto. He's from Chile. He has this idea that lots of people in poor countries, including Nigeria, are not poor. They are simply not. They have land rich, but they are poor in terms of cash. Because in Nigeria and other countries, we say if you do not have title to the land, you do not own the land. So my grandfather could have farmed the land that his grandfather farmed on for centuries. But because the federal government was formed in 1960 and they passed a land use act, that land is not his. What that means is that he cannot go to the bank and get credit to buy a tractor to farm that land. So there's Hernando de Soto in Chile. Try this example. The Chilean government tried example based on what he wrote. That they said they simply took land and gave to poor peasants. They gave them the title of the land. And those peasants took that land. It was now their asset. They could then go borrow to buy fertilizers. And that's where the economic miracle, of course, started. The same thing that South Africans have tried and has failed, where they gave land to the black people, is it the empowerment, black empowerment, whatever. The same thing Americans have tried. It's been done in Australia, where if you give land to poor people, quote unquote, people that do not have the means to buy that land, and they can generate economy around that land, or they can use that land as their asset to borrow money, they get richer. Not in Nigeria's case now. In Nigeria's case, what we're seeing is this: that land on that road. Today, if you go to my village, land is cheap because there's nothing in my village. But if tomorrow you find something in my village, maybe they find a dinosaur skull in my village, and you both come to my village, land in my village becomes more expensive than Asokoro because there's demand for it. How do you create demand for land? You build an intercontinental highway on that land. When you build it on both sides of that road, you give it away to folks that can invest today. Look at what you're doing today. Las Vegas was a desert till someone built a strip. Las Vegas was a desert till someone built a strip. Now it's Las Vegas. If you put a road, the side of the road is you have mechanics, motels, schools, repair. You've doubled the value of that land. Who owns that land? The state. If the state is smart, the state can carve out land on that entire street of the road, front and back. And the state will then say, even if we don't sell it today, we're going to create a land bank. This land bank will assetize or securitize that land certificate. So from thin air, Edo State will create trillions in the bank from thin air.
So first of all, not a single thing of what you said is part of the government's long-term plan.
But that's what we're saying. Then.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that we have to be careful with that because we're making assumptions and attributing economic growth to things to plans that are not even existing.
Namdi, we're on the same side. We are saying that the government wants to grow at 4%. Then we said that they want the largest project is the coastal road. And we are saying they're not doing it properly. They should do it this way.
Right, but I would actually go to challenge you one more step. I don't really think it's a function of doing it properly. I think in political economy, there are trade-offs that one has to make, right? And the problem that we clearly have in Nigeria and in Africa is that we invest in infrastructure before we invest in the people.
That's how it's done everywhere in the world.
I disagree with that because and I think it's difficult to argue against me because look at the results of our economy today.
I can give examples.
Since 1960, we have continuously invested in these white elephant projects because, by the way, the road that they're building, they may not even do it up to par. We're assuming that they'll build that road and they'll do it up to par, which is not a given in the Nigerian context. So you're investing in that road, but you're not investing in the people to optimize the usage of the road.
No, we can chew gum and walk. And again, at the same time,
apparently we can't in the African context. And again, you can't agree on that because we see the results. So here's what I would do: if I had that 13 billion, I would invest that in health and education of the people. Good. We have enough roads in Nigeria. When you invest in the people, you can now create just as much economic activity.
We can't.
At the end of the day, that road, I'm sorry, is only for the economic elite. Because they are the one in the short term. In economics, we talk about short term, mid-term, and long term, right? In the short term, who is actually going to be able to maximize the commercial?
You got it wrong. Economics does not wait. We in economics, look at how the government should operate. The government's budget should go to health and education. The government should get the private sector to invest in the road. We can't build schools, right?
Now, hold on. You just said something that I agree
with. Let me land. We can't build schools, and then when we build the schools, we start building roads. No, we can do both at the same time.
No, fantastic. I actually agree with you. What there is there needs to be delegation of economic growth and economic activity. In my perspective, in my economic philosophy, there are certain things that the government should outsource to the private sector, especially when it comes to our infrastructure and development. However, there's a certain percentage, as much as 30% of our budget should go into the investment of our human capital. It doesn't make sense in the context of Nigeria today, where 90% are... because I just gave you the statistic of how much much of our population is living without skills, without education, etc.
Yes.
You can build that road to thy kingdom come. You're never going to maximize the commercial utility of that road without the people.
That's not true, Namdi. Because if you go to any road in Nigeria that passes through the poor farmlands, what do you see? The farmers come out of the bush, go on that road with their keke, go to the market.
So now you let me make this point. Hold on, let me interject here. We're talking about maximizing the commercial utility. There's a difference between I'm a small business I'm a small business. I go and access credit. I go and buy a bunch of trucks so I can move X amounts of goods. I'm using Tokumbo and Keke to go on this road. What are we talking about? 90% of your population do not have access to that credit. They don't have access to it. They don't have the equity. They don't have assets. They don't have anything. So you're better off investing in getting these people. And by the way, we live in a globalized world today. There are apps that will allow you to do coding for people who are in the US, etc. You invest in people who can access the global economy, digital economy, etc. Your pathway to economic viability, that's not going to do. You're building for the likes of those who can use that road to today. If I'm a poor person around those areas, what am I at? I'm not going to do it, but if you give me the education, if you give me access, internet, you give me the education to learn coding, learn this one, I can go and actually make money. I can be paid by the international market. That's what India did. Remember, India went from built actively service economy, low-grade service economy. They went into IT. They invested in terms of getting a decent amount of the population, especially as far as technical IT issues are concerned. And you saw West show a bunch of them. And they've been relying on that. We are killing ourselves with this kinds of investments and infrastructure. It just doesn't make. And the thing is, it drives me crazy because you can't say I'm wrong. Because look at our economy. You talk about the state of our economy all the time and all the various mirages, and we keep making the same mistake. We have to do something differently, and that means making very difficult trade-off decisions. From my perspective, leave these infrastructure projects alone. Invest in the human capital. It will yield you better long-term profits than what we have today. I leave my submission there. Thank you.
Okay, so I didn't want to. I wanted to get to say so. Economics does not work this way. When the Americans were building the train, they didn't wait till the poor homesteaders were educated. They built the railway. The poor homesteaders got on the railway and went to the west, got that land, farmed. Then their kids became educated. Their kids, not them, their kids. You've got to build infrastructure irrespective of the education and the health of your population. The question is who should build it. The federal government does not have the money to build infrastructure in Nigeria. So the federal government should focus on health, education. The federal government should then create the policies to attract private capital to build the infrastructure in Nigeria.
Agree with you 100%.
A road in Nigeria will add GDP per capita. When you see those poor farmers come out of the bush to go on that express road to take their little cassava bales to farm, you are reducing the cost of doing business at that micro level because of that little road. That road, if you build a road from Lagos to Calabar, all those poor villages that had to walk and take palm oil kernel on their back from village A to village B will now buy a small keke and take it from village A to village B. That's productivity. Wealth is measured in productivity.
I think we're in agreement. I think in principle, what we're saying is who should pay for it. And I think we're in agreement that the government should do a better job because high tech that got that contract, I don't think they're putting out the 13 billion and then collecting their revenues via toll mechanism over the life.
I just think that the whole project is we don't know anything about the project. It's shrouded in secrecy. Nigeria has borrowed.
You don't see them now.
No. I don't want you to see. I'm not the guy to throw baby with the bathwater.
Right.
Tinubu is building a road. I like the road. It will help GDP. Whether I like Tinubu or not, if that road is built, the GDP of Nigeria will double or
Yeah,
triple.
but the point we're making is where's the money coming
But
from?
that's a different, now again, that's a different conversation. The conversation I'm making today is that the road has got to be built. Now, if you
hold on, you can't have that conversation in absentia or in a vacuum of the realities on the ground.
Yeah, you keep interrupting me. You keep. So
okay, go ahead.
Again, right? We've got to have the road built. Thumbs up. Now, I am also making the point that the states get 90% of VAT. Before, I don't know if you were here when we said that the states can easily create a fund where each state will take 40% of VAT, put into an infrastructure fund, and the federal government will then take its own 100% of royalties, put into that fund, and they build the road. Right now, the road is being built through budgetary allocations, although they say it's a PPP, that Mr. Chaguri will somehow raise billions to build that. I don't think that's going to be possible, because no one's going to give him the money. The road today is not bankable. If you go to any bank, Nigerians are very they are very positive. If you come to my bank and I'm in Deutschland or I'm in England and you tell me you want to build a road from Lagos to Calabar, I'm going to ask you, how will you pay back? I need to see a toll on the road. They're not going to wait for the budget. They're going to say, well, I want to see a ring-fenced project where if I give you money, I can hold the project to pay back. Lagos built a toll road from Lekki to Ikoyi. The road pays itself back because it's a toll road between Lekki and Ikoyi. Fantastic.
100%.
But
yes.
if you go to Lagos to Calabar, only a few sections you can toll that have money. Calabar has money. Lagos has money. Edo has money. In between that road, they're going to see stretches where you cannot toll because people are just not going to pay. They don't have the money to pay. This is the point you're making. So you've got to be smart enough to say, where would you put the tools? Where would you start from first? That's why Calabar is being built. They're building Lagos. That's where the money is. Calabar, Akwa Ibom, that road they are building in Akwa Ibom was always in the plan.
Yes.
They are not building that road because of the coastal road. It's always in the plan.
We're in agreement with a lot of things. I just think that when we're having these conversations, there has to be a distinction between what theoretically will work, should work, and should be done, and what's happening in reality.
Yeah, it's not theory. You have to build a road. Nigeria needs infrastructure. We're not. See, I live in a country where like literally this country where I live, right? They would literally go to a good road, rip the road up, and put a new road there. Why? Stimulus. The roads are good, so they don't need any more roads anymore. In Japan, they will literally go to a good road, rip the road up, then build the road again because they need to create work for their population. They don't have any more in there. There's nothing you can't say in Japan that if you build one road, if you build a road in Japan, it adds nothing to productivity. They are already productive. In Nigeria's case, the productivity cliff is so steep. If you build 1 kilometer of road in Nigeria, what you are gaining back, you can't compare what in Japan or the UK or the US. We have nothing. If you put power supply, let's take power supply. If you put power supply in Nigeria today, your GDP will double. If you take the Japan, your GDP, now I don't want you to Cyrus hop in here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think we're agreeing on a lot of things. One, do you need infrastructure? Yes. How you pay for that infrastructure matters, right? The government has a budget that is only so big. You have trade-off decisions to make. We know that 70% of our budget, 75% already goes to debt. Now we have like 30% or 25% left, right? So how you maximize that 25% is so important. I believe, and I think you agree, that the best way to build these roads is to execute some kind of PPP, get the private sector involved, right?
So again, that's what we're rehashing ourselves. We're rehashing. If you are listening on the space, right? There's a building. I don't want you guys to go and rush into that building, but there's a building in Lagos. It's a UAC building in Lagos. UAC building. It's on Maloney 1-5 Maloney. If you go to that building, on the wall you'll see the picture of Lagos when Lagos was being built. UAC, if you don't know, UAC ran Nigeria. UAC was the government of Nigeria before Nigeria had a government. You see the picture of Nigeria, of Lagos, of Marina when it was being built. When the Germans built the flyovers in Lagos, they were like little or no cars in Lagos. Those flyover bridges you see from Apapa all the way to, I think it's in Ikeja. When they built all those flyovers from Ikeja to Apapa, there was hardly any road or traffic in Lagos. But the Germans knew 25 years down the line, this is the federal capital of Nigeria, there's going to be roads are going to come all over the place. And we need to have infrastructure to accommodate those roads. What killed Lagos was that when we then had those flyover bridges, there was no infrastructure done in Lagos again. When they built this infrastructure, not what's happening again. We had Metro Line. Metro Line was never done. Imagine if Metro Line was done in Lagos in the 1980s. We wouldn't have traffic today. Because that Metro Line would have been like in London, like the London Underground. We will have no traffic today. And it's all across Nigeria. We're not talking of, this argument now you're making is when you have infrastructure already, then you now start saying, okay, let's do PPP. Nigeria's case, you cannot go from Lagos. If you live in Lagos in Nigeria today, you cannot go from Lagos to, say, Abia on a grade 1 expressway in the largest economy in Africa. In the largest economy in Africa, you do not get 24 hours power. So the infrastructure we're talking about is just, let's even survive. It's like I'm testing. You are saying, give me sparkling water. I just need water. Give me water first. When I drink that water, we can talk about whether it's cold or not.
Okay. I apologize. Just it's a question to you. I accepted it. Now, let me ask you this. So what do you do with that human capital that we both agree?
I haven't said we should do it. I said we can chew gum and walk. We've got to invest in infrastructure and human capital. We cannot wait. There are 10 million kids walking on the street in Kano. 10 million, in the north that are quote-unquote Almajiri. We cannot wait till we educate them before Kano builds flyover bridges. They have to do both at the same time. That's the point I'm making. We've got to do both. We only have
25% of our budgets available.
So we cannot build in a nation with the budget. This is the point I made about America and the Transnational Railway. That railway was built with private capital, not public capital. They passed policies to attract capital. Look at what they did. Again, they sold land to developers, and developers sold land to railway companies. Railway companies sold land to developers. Circular system.
I rest my case.
You are not wrong. Let's get Prince. Let's get Prince. Enna, I didn't know you were a prince. I know you were a doctor. Not sure you were a prince. But Enna, please go ahead.
John 1:5, light shineth and darkness cannot comprehend. Carlo, I was enjoying the discussion with you and Nnamdi. I have just one question for you, Carlo. Carlo, with the current security situation of Nigeria, would you travel on the Lagos-Calabar highway?
I will not. I don't think I will. But that's a security question, and don't put me on the spot like that, Prince. Prince, you have more to give us in this discussion. Prince, please come back.
No, I've enjoyed it.
No, I want you, Prince. You have more to give. I know you. So, Prince, I think you just want to ask something. Agree with. What do you think, Prince?
I would tilt with Nnamdi because South Africa has roads, has electricity, maybe 5,000 megawatts. But the people you don't train and the people you don't raise would make you not be able to fly the roads for security reasons. So I would prioritize investment in the people before I invest in infrastructure, because you cannot travel on that road if the people are not invested in the security situation. Like you just confirmed, I would not fly that road with the current security situation. Instead, I build airports where people can fly. America has 19,000 airports, so let people fly and be safe. Because Section 14, subsection 2B of Nigeria's 1979 Constitution says the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary concern of government. So what would I do? One, I would open this part of thinking, I invest in the people. Two, I will build more airports and liberalize the aviation sector. America has 19,000 roads, so make sure people are safe. And our flight distances are just 1 hour. So I'll liberalize the aviation sector. The roads will be secondary. And lastly, when they said the infrastructure, roads are just now up. We need to first the value of our current road infrastructure. We need to preserve that value before we think of duplicating Ocos Pocos, Lagos Calabar, Lagos anyway.
Okay, fantastic. Let's get CU. Again, Lagos Ibadan is infrastructure. We're not talking about the road particularly. We're talking of infrastructure. Cyrus, your hands are up. Cyrus, please go ahead and I'll get CU. See, just hold on a bit. Cyrus, go ahead and say what you're saying. We'll get CU. Cyrus, go ahead.
Absolutely. So I just want to say that when you have long-term mega infrastructure like the Lagos Calabar, the Lagos Ibadan road, the railway, you don't finance them with annual fees budget. That's how you finance those kind of projects. You can finance, smaller sub-national road, international road within the state, with annual budget. You go to the capital market, raise bond, long-term bond, you get bilateral loans, that are low cost, right, that are with high long-term material, and they use that kind of easy financing to find them. And secondly, I don't come on something.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and secondly, those kind of now they talking about optimization of the utility of the road. When you make road like that, they're supposed to have long-term, lifespan. So the idea behind this is that you're building them for the future, for the future users, not for yourself, right? Not for the current, not for the current.
It's not for today. It's not for today.
You're not building for today. You're building for tomorrow, for the forecast economic activity. So that's why they do. So now I agree with you on one thing that Nigeria has been badly governed for a very long period of time. This is not the time. In fact, given our national infrastructure planning as far back as 1979, that was far back as the last one, I could research for all of these roads that we're not talking about doing them. They should have been done long time ago, not today. So I understand the part of mismanagement and whatever it is that's going on in the country, but in terms the assumption that you're going to spend a major revenue of 25 trillion to finance roads of 200 kilometer, 150 kilometer, that's not the way you're supposed to plan the economy, because if you're doing that, you're going to be undercutting things like education, things like primary health care, things like military.
It's just not possible. Yeah, it's not possible, and I blame the government because it's looking as if they have the PPP project. But all I've heard is we went to Deutsche Bank and borrowed money. Now we've gone to Dubai and borrowed money. I've not heard Mr. Chagori put a cent down. See you. Please go ahead.
Hello?
Hey, see you. Hi, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Most of the time I come here I think last time I came I spoke, but today I just want to ask a few questions because I'm a global macro person. So I'm just trying to see, the topic was a review of the key macroeconomic indicators for Nigeria. So
Yeah.
First of all, in terms of growth, economic growth, my intuition on what my economic theory, generally, if you see the average GDP growth globally, it's average around 3%.
Yeah.
Even when we had crises like the sovereign debt, Eurozone
I
sovereign
say
debt crisis.
for Nigeria or for who?
For general. So my intuition is there a correlation? Because if we have some sort of little depression, what happens to economic growth in Nigeria? And then second of all, what I want to say is that if we're forecasting, I think I read an article that said if we're forecasting 8% GDP growth in the next few years,
Yeah.
I don't believe the non-oil sectors and that. I'm probably seeing that. Yeah, I'm probably seeing growth in real estate and telecommunication and IT. But one sector I thought we would put some serious emphasis on is manufacturing. And I've seen for the past 3 years now, it's grown less than 2%.
Yeah.
So I thought we would put more emphasis on that because I'm a big believer of making what you consume as well. And
you're seeing a lot, and you're seeing some very heavy things I want us to address. So Nigeria's GDP, if you look at say 2014, 2015, we're doing about 6%, 8% casually. I think under Obasanjo, I believe in 2025 or 2005 or so, we highest GDP growth rate that we had. So we do tend to do a lot beyond even the 4%. 4% was laughed at a long time ago in Nigeria. In 2022, Nigeria did 15%. 2022.
okay.
So that's 2002. 2002, we did about 15%, right? And then we did about 9% in 2004. In about 2010, we're in 8%. 2009, about 8%. So this current 4% is an abnormally. Nigeria always and should grow because we have a lot of runway, we have a lot of line to grow. So we're not growing. So what we're doing right now is below par, is below history, is below over the past. Why are we not growing? What are the three? Let me answer your question. Okay. Look at the three sectors in Nigeria that matter. There are three sectors that matter in Nigeria. Number one is agriculture. Number two is trade. Number three is services. We now added IT. So agriculture, trade, and services. And just as services, let's just say it's ICT. Agriculture is our largest contributor to GDP, our largest employer. In the last, from 2020 to date, we have grown agriculture at less than 2%.
Yeah, it was negative actually last.
Negative, correct. So what's going on is that because the largest sector of our economy is growing, even when we grow banking, grow real estate, it doesn't move the needle because the largest sector, which is agriculture, is 2%. No action there. The second largest is going to be trade. Trade is also not growing because it's just hard to trade in Nigeria. You have costs and all that, so we can't trade. What is growing is IT services. So because agriculture and trade are not growing, the GDP is sluggish. What Tinubu did, when we did this 4% growth, you know where the growth is coming from? Oil, that's it. Tinubu went to crude oil. Crude oil was negative under Buhari. So Tinubu went to crude oil and grew crude oil. That growth in crude oil is what is giving us the 4% growth we have today. That's why it's splitting. Because we've simply gone back to what has worked. We've diversified the economy. Kudos to Tinubu, but we've gone back to crude oil, brought in more investments, and grown crude oil. That's what they see when they say the resource income in Nigeria is skewed towards resources. We're getting money from. That's what's going on, sir.
Yes, but do you think? I'll ask you. But do you think in 2002 we had the backward integration policy? In my opinion, when I speak to economists, I always tell them that I think it was one of the most fascinating things that policies we initiated. When in terms of cement, where before they were able to get licenses, they had to build their own infrastructure. So I did some research. And I was like, can't we model that in, for example, some in agricultural commodities? Can't we use that same model to make sure that we use it to grow the agricultural sector? That is.
You know what's going on in Nigeria? Can we be honest and blunt? When we had President Olusegun Obasanjo, he pursued this backward integration import substitution policy. So he told them back then Dangote was an importer of rice and sugar. Obasanjo told everybody in Nigeria, but in 5 years we're going to stop the import of certain products. If you're a local producer in Nigeria, we will give you protection. Obasanjo was trying to build what South Korea, where they had the chaebols, where like Hyundai and Daewoo had a protected market and they could grow. And that was Obasanjo's idea for Nigeria. That's why he had Transcorp. Transcorp was created as a private sector but government protected company, where all the billionaires in Nigeria were supposed to go to Transcorp and then invest in Transcorp. So you then have Transcorp oil power. Not this Transcorp now. The first Transcorp was Obasanjo's idea, right? Okay. Then we then did that for cement. Before Obasanjo, we were a net importer of cement. In the 1970s, what we call the cement armada. So we were a net importer of cement. Under Obasanjo, he said do local backward integration. Dangote took it seriously. Lafarge and the rest did not. We were importing orange juice back in Nigeria. We used to have Five Alive. People remember there was something called Five Alive in Nigeria. We don't see it anymore. We now have Chi. Chi has not been bought by the same company that used to import Five Alive, which is Coca-Cola. She has not been bought again, right? Again, we had recharge cards in Nigeria. It was imported to then made locally. Many things were substituted from import to local, and it worked. Like you're right, it worked because we would pick a sector, do import substitution, and move on. Then we stopped, and right now, what's happening today is that Dangote has built a $20 billion refinery, and people are fighting him because they know if you allow Dangote, let me tell you people something. In 5 years, Dangote is going to break into the top 10 people in the world. 5 years, maybe okay, let's call it 10 years, you will see Mark Zuckerberg, you see all these guys, you see Dangote. Because it's just, he has too much scale. He's in the largest economy in Africa, and he's selling a utility product you need. You need gas, you need fertilizer, you need all his products, you need cement. So he's just going to keep on selling and scaling and getting richer.
Yeah.
So certain people that are very highly placed in Nigeria are fighting him. They want to cut him down to size, not to allow him to become too powerful. If not that Dangote was Dangote, you remember that Kogi State took away his factory, remember? Kogi State passed a bill and revoked his sale. Dangote is a listed company in Bloomberg. So in companies in America, they own Dangote Cement, American companies. So suddenly they wake up on morning and they hear that a local House of Assembly, not federal, a local House of Assembly has made their investment worth zero. What do you think they've done to Kogi State in America? What do you think they've done to Kogi State? So we have to tell ourselves the truth that we've stopped that policy because certain people in government today feel threatened by allowing certain people that are in the private sector to become too powerful. That's the honest truth. You can debate it anyhow you want to debate it. But if Dangote...
So you're saying that so we don't have a free market now.
We have a free market concept, right? But there is no free market on earth. There is none. In America, remember when American government had a bid for aircraft refuelers, Boeing and Airbus applied. Airbus won the contract. The American Senate canceled the contract. John McCain canceled the contract. They did the contract again. Then Boeing won. You see what I'm saying? So there is no free market in the world. Every market, including America, protects its own indigenous players. There's no way America will allow Airbus, no matter how good the plane is, to displace Boeing.
So the last question I want to ask you, Carlo, is I'm trying to wrap my head around interest rates, inflation in Nigeria.
Yep.
Because what I was taught in economics, in general things, if inflation is coming below targets, then rates should come down, right, and vice versa. So I've seen, we've seen in Nigeria now where the data shows that inflation is coming down. Yeah. Let's call it disinflation. But these guys are being very hawkish. So now, in my opinion, in my own thinking, I'm just wondering: are the people running this monetary policy, are they interested in the so-called carry trade?
No.
Because I think Nigeria is a carry trade opportunity if you're a hedge fund, basically. Yeah. So where you can borrow, for example, borrow cheaply in the yen, the Japanese yen, you can invest in the higher rate naira or something like that.
Your questions are designed to put us in trouble. So see what's going on in Nigeria with inflation. We know, you and I know if you were here at the beginning of the space, the inflation rate in Nigeria has not come down organically. It has come down by fiat. So it's an astroturf inflation. It's not green shoots, it's astroturf. What they've done is they've gone and changed the methodology, right, of inflation in Nigeria. Because they've changed the methodology, the disinflation has then occurred. So because the CBN knows that the rate of growth in prices has not come down organically, they are now really holding back to cutting rate. Because the CBN is afraid of exchange rate, not inflation. In Nigeria, is that it's not cheap. If you make money, credit in Nigeria, people borrow naira and go and buy dollars. To make interest rates come down to 15%, we have option space to go and borrow 1 billion naira, then buy dollars and just wait. If we say hold your dollars, we get into trouble. But the CBN is essentially saying that they know this will happen. That if interest rates are lower, Nigerians are going to go and buy dollar, hold it and sell and make a profit on doing nothing. So they want to keep rates high to fight that cheap naira and cheap credit. That doesn't make any sense because inflation has come down in quotes. So again, if you know what Nando was going on about investing in capital, Nigeria has to move from just fighting inflation to empowering growth. The past CBN governor, Emefiele, was doing a lot of direct assistance in the economy, giving people credits that was below interest rates. This present CBN governor does not want to do it because he says that's not the orthodox CBN. But I put it to you, there is no economy in the world where the private sector, whereas the CBN or the government does not help the economy. In America, when they had COVID, their Federal Reserve issued loans all over the place. They bought back bonds. So it's good to say, oh, I'm an orthodox CBN. I have 51 billion in my foreign reserves. I have interest rates at 27. What's the point of that if SMEs are dying? What's the point of all that? So I agree with you that the CBN has got to, in a way, stimulate the growth of the SMEs.
So are you saying that we need monetary expansion? What you're saying?
Correct. We need to ease. If it has to be that we target in a way, maybe we say we're going to focus on reverse VAT, or we're going to say that if you invest in power, the Central Bank of Nigeria will give you back that money, or anyhow you want to do it. But the central bank cannot simply say we are going to be traditional whilst the economy is going through a storm. You know, it's like you saying, I'm going to build my house, I'll build my high walls, I will pay my taxes, I'll respect the authorities, my neighbors can go to hell. You have to drive out of your house to go to work. Like, when Prince asked a question, would you go on that road if it's not safe? It's the same thing. Well, if the economy is not consuming, Nigerians are not consuming. We don't buy new cars, new air conditioners, we don't buy new fridge. If we're not consuming and the CBN has NPR at 27%, Kewu Ruoba, as Igbo say, Kewu Ruoba, what's the point of having macroeconomics that are fantastic, but people cannot afford to consume? What's the point? You see?
But that consumption was under Buhari. I think it fell almost 7% from 2019.
It was negative, not 7%. It was negative.
Sorry.
It was negative, not 7%. Nigerians are not consuming. The biggest problem today in Nigeria is the lack of consumption. If you don't get Nigerians consuming, the economy will not expand. Consumption means we are not buying things. After 9/11, what did President Bush tell Americans after 9/11? What did he tell them? Go out and shop. Why did he say go out and shop?
Where we have lower rates now.
Not lower rates, because if Americans don't shop, the economy will crash. Nigerians have not shopped, the economy has crashed. That's why all the companies are leaving Nigeria, because you're not buying their thing. Go to ShopRite. You can't afford. Nigerians can't afford anything imported. It's too expensive for us. That's why petrol is expensive. Someone said you don't speak Igbo language. I'm Igbo now. What do you mean? I'm from Lagos. But, okay. Well,
for you.
Doc, please, Prince, go ahead.
So election is next year, 2027, and prior to election, investors, either portfolio or direct, will be a little bit cold-fitted based on the trajectory.
Sure.
Now, let's assume two scenarios. There's a change of government, or there's no change of government. And from what you just said now, MFL CBN had a different approach to the current CBN. The current CBN is conservative. You said Jonathan was building East West Road. Obasanjo was building a coastal road.
Same way, yeah. Same thing.
Tinubu is building a...
Same thing, just different name. Same thing.
So my question to you, Kalu, based on the fact that we know the election is coming, would you say there's beauty in consistency to policy of a government who had invested time putting the foundations for a certain policy and them seeing it through? Or what is the cost of a new government coming that comes with a bullish or bearish CBN or monetary policy that goes totally in a different direction with our macroeconomics? Because if you look at Buhari closed border, Tinubu open border. So that's my question to you. What would be the impact of a change of a new government and that goes in a totally different direction?
I think if there's a change, I think it's just that we don't emphasize what is important for us in the long term. If whoever is going to be president of America tomorrow in 2028, they will still pick up kids by 7 a.m. with the yellow buses, ER will still run, and their things will still operate. Whoever is president. China does, as you know, 10-year budgets and 10-year implementation cycles. When the military was here, we had industrial plans where we had National Industrial Plan 1, 2, and 3. Under Obasanjo, we had Vision 2020. I think the problem today is that we don't have a long-term vision and we don't have a funding for the long-term vision. That's why President Tinubu can come to office, look at the East-West road that is uncompleted, and then start the similar coastal road that will spend more than the East-West road. If Nigeria had a policy and a project management framework, then he would have completed the East-West road and then linked the East-West road, of course, to Lagos. That would have been the natural thing to do. He might have even said, okay, I'm going to start the East-West Railway that Goodluck started and complete it. But if you do that, what's the effect to him? Goodluck started the Abuja to Kaduna Railway. He built the whole rail. He imported the carriages. He even rode the carriages. Then Buhari came to office and Buhari's people said Buhari built Abuja to Kaduna Railway. They even shared the video.
Hello.
So hold up, Amir. So Tinubu wants to have a legacy project. He wants to have a legacy project. If he goes and builds Goodluck's railway, it's not his project. If he builds Obasanjo's road, it's not. And that's Prince, where you are going to. That we have personalities and not plans and programs. Everybody comes in with a new plan. Everybody comes with a new plan. And that's a big problem. If Tinubu goes today, I assure you, Coastal Road is going to die. I assure you, as night follows day, Coastal Road will die. They might go back to East-West Road, but they will not continue the Coastal Road. And everybody here knows it. So why do we have plans that are personality-based? Why not come an all-stakeholders meeting of Nigeria and say, what are the infrastructure projects today that every Nigerian will agree on? Every Nigerian today agrees that we need a road from the east to the west. Nigeria has zero railways from the east of Nigeria to the west of Nigeria. There is no railway going from the east to the west. The railways you have today in Nigeria were built by the British, apart from the one that Goodluck built from Abuja to Kaduna and the one IBB built from Ajaokuta to Ilaje, or the one that is in the middle of Warri. That's all. The rest are built by the British. We're building one now from Maradi to Kano. They are all not connected. If you take a standard railway from Lagos, you stop at Ibadan, you can't go further. Because Ibadan to Kano is narrow gauge. Lagos to Ibadan is standard gauge. If you go from Abuja to Kaduna, you go standard gauge from Abuja, you stop at Kaduna, you can't go further. Maradi to Kano is standard gauge. Kano to up to Ibadan is narrow gauge. The railway in the middle of Nigeria, the Abeokuta to Warri railway, is standard gauge. All over it is narrow gauge. The one beside it in Aba is narrow gauge. So you have railways 3,000 kilometers. You can't go on them. To go from Lagos to Calabar by railway, you first go to Kaduna and then come back to Lagos. So if you simply say, let's have a railway project that links up every city in Nigeria, that's a project every Nigerian will support. Then you say, we're going to have a special fund, 10%, to fund that railway. Every Nigerian will support that project, irrespective of political party, whoever wins, who doesn't win. But we don't have that in Nigeria, Prince. That's the problem. So if Tinubu wins the next election, he was going to scrap his entire team. He will now bring in his real expert, because now he knows he's not going to go for re-election. He only has 4 years. He will try to rush. You can't build a east-west railway or coastal road in 4 years. I'm laughing at these boys on Twitter that are sharing their tweet with me saying, Carlos said I will not build road. We'll be here in 4 years or 5 years, God willing. We'll see it together. You cannot build an east-to-west road in 4 years, even if you have the money. It's just not possible. But you guys you want to help Tinubu. He didn't ask for your help. He's an accountant. He knows. But it's not for you guys to say, President Tinubu, we can't build the whole road. Let's build Lagos to Ogun or Edo. Make it beautiful and stop there. Let the next person connect from Edo to Delta. That's how you build the road. The Trans Railway we're talking about in America was not built by one administration. It wasn't. But Nigeria, we say no. Tinubu is the he will build. How can he build a road from Lagos to Calabar in 4 years? And you guys are the ones putting the man up for. When the man doesn't build, they say, but you're not being reasonable with the man. See you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to ask. I just saw something on my Bloomberg terminal, right? Are we worried about low oil prices like globally? Because
see you. See, when did you join the space? See you. When did you join? Honestly,
no. I'm talking in terms of if our economy is correlated with the naira. I'm just saying in terms of macro forecast.
Of course. I mean, with the whole space. The whole space, see, is about this oil price. And again, see, if you want to really know, I did a YouTube video. It's close to my YouTube channel. You see where I did the dollar price of oil. Yeah. I linked it back to macroeconomic. But this space is talking about the review and the forecast of key macro indicators. Yeah, and the key thing we said is this oil price. This $64 a barrel is astro tough.
Okay.
It's astro tough. It's a big problem because if you go back to this chart, I think I see how the chart up on YouTube. If you look at the chart, see you right. We want to spend in Nigeria 34. We want to get revenues of 34 trillion Nigeria. 34 trillion because we're going to pump out 1.84 million barrels a day at $64 per barrel. Because of this, we're going to borrow nearly 2 trillion a month. Hear what I said.
Okay.
Nigeria is going to borrow nearly 2 trillion a month. What happens if oil prices go to 60? What happens? They are already at 60. See, we're already at 60.
I think is it WTI or
Brent is at 60. Right now. No. Brent is at 60. Are you saying it's low? Has it gone lower? Are you saying it's gone lower?
I'm looking at right now. The oil, I don't want to turn the oil markets open, but I'm seeing around $50, $57, $58 per barrel.
For Brent?
Right now. I think should be Brent or WTI. I'm not sure. Let me check. But I'm seeing around $57, $58 now.
If you are seeing that, then we're in trouble. I would say go and hold your dollar. If you are seeing, I'm looking at it now, it's still at 60. The markets haven't opened. If you are seeing Brent crude at $57 a barrel, I'll say go and hold your dollar. Sorry. Kill me. Yes. Prince, go ahead, Prince.
Kali, how 1 to 100, how would you rate the current CBN governor? And going forward, let's say in the future, can you describe the mindset of a sound CBN governor for an economy like Nigeria?
1 to 100 in terms of doing his job according to his CV, I will give him 95. According to doing his job according to his CV, 95. But Prince, how many people do you know that have made it in life because they didn't follow their CV? Elon Musk didn't follow his CV. The whole idea of being of change is that you don't follow your CV. When I mean your CV, what they've told you to do. If you come to Nigeria, which goes to your second question, a Nigerian CBN governor does not need to be an economist. He needs to be a person that understands how the Nigerian economy creates jobs. And needs to work with the CBN's balance sheet, to work with the SMEs, to create growth that can fight inflation for him. There are two ways to fight inflation. You can cut down money supply, or you can increase the supply of goods and services. The CBN governor today wants to fight inflation by cutting down money supply, which is by increasing the interest rate. Rather, he should fight inflation by increasing the supply of goods and services. If you increase the supply of goods and services, inflation would fall. He's not interested in that. Emefiele was trying to increase goods and services, and he abandoned MPR. He paid the price because he was corrupt. This guy doesn't seem to be corrupt, but I think he's a bit too bookish by focusing only on the MPR. You can't fight inflation with just MPR. I give the example of onions in Jigawa. If you cut MPR to 0, Jigawa onions will not go up in price, will not go down in price. If you print 100 trillion % naira today, Jigawa onions will not go up in price and will not come down. It doesn't correlate. the MPR does not affect the price of goods and services in Jigawa onions because there's a supply, a glut of onions in Jigawa. So replicate that onions glut supply all across Nigeria. If there's rice everywhere, there will be no inflation. If there's yam everywhere, there will be no inflation. If there's PMS everywhere, there will be no inflation, irrespective of what you print. Prince, did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, Mark Carney, the current Prime Minister of Canada, was governor of the Bank of England from 2013 to 2020. So if you say two things, if you say the person does not need to be an economist, I buy into that. Can you also say we can give that seat to a foreigner like England did? And I would say this, Carlo, you are the next CBN governor after this one.
Amen. Hallelujah. But seriously, sir, I think anyone that can do the job, we should bring him. If we can hire foreign coaches, why can't we hire a foreign CBN governor? Why can't we? We need to get someone that understands how we can create jobs. That's what I need for the CBN governor. Because if that person understands, he would then say, I'm going to focus on power generation. If you want to create jobs in Nigeria, do power supply. If you create power supply in Nigeria, the Nigerian people are already entrepreneurial. We don't need your help. Get out of the way, government. If you put power supply in any state in Nigeria, jobs will double. They don't need your help. In many countries, you have to go and beg people, hey, start a job. Nigerians are already doing jobs. Look at the kids of Nigeria. They created Nollywood. No government help. They created Nollywood on their own. It grew to be bigger than Hollywood. Only Bollywood is beating Nollywood. From Nigeria, no government plan, no policy, just on their own. Look at FinTech. The kids of Nigeria created FinTech. Yaba Tech. Who created Yaba Tech? The kids of Nigeria. So not Yaba Tech, Yaba Silicon Valley. The kids of Nigeria. They didn't need no government help. Innocent, no government help. He created it. So we don't need, quote unquote, the government to help us. We need the government to pass the laws, policies, do it level playing field, create the policy, that person will come and do power. Get out of the way. We'll do it ourselves. That's what Nigerians need. We don't need the government. Let me give you a quote, and I hope you guys quote me. If you remove government, not saying you should remove the government, to beg you. If you take the government out of the way, there's no ministry of, no commissioner of, just take government out of the way, Nigeria's GDP will go up. The government is a drag on GDP. We've had spaces here now. We've had spaces here many times. Remember a guy that came here and said that he exports yam, but to export yam from Nigeria is too hard. So he takes the yam head and goes to Ghana, plants Nigerian yam head in Ghana. Then the yam will grow. Then he will take that yam, export that yam as Ghanaian yam to Canada. Because Nigerian yam is different from Ghanaian yam. People like Nigerian yam. But he can't export yam from Nigeria. A guy said it here. Look at Landmark Beach. You can argue that the beach was on the road, not the road. But I'm telling you, in America, never have demolished that resort. Never. There was a road behind Landmark now. There was a road behind Landmark. They would have gone on that road. They wouldn't have demolished it. If you like, argue from here to they would not have demolished Landmark. They wouldn't. So it's hard to do business in Nigeria. We need to see people that can understand how to create jobs. If we have that kind of person, GDP has to go up. When Okonjo-Iweala was here, she's a book woman. You see how she goes down to the grassroots. What did she do? She published how much gives to It's because of Okonjo-Iweala that we know how much our states get. She did, what's it called? Where all the ministers had to get your salaries through biometric. So we removed ghost workers. She removed ghost workers. She did TSA. Before her, there was the ministry of one bank will hold account for 10 ministries and another ministry will come and borrow. She did TSA. One book woman. So it's not that book is bad, but the book has got to be applied to Nigeria. Nigeria is a very unique economy. You can't come to Nigeria and just speak English. You must know the ground roots. And even Okonjo-Iweala, as a book woman, knew the ground roots in Nigeria. Dora Akuyuli, look at her. Look at what one woman did. One woman did in Nigeria. They tried to kill her. But look at what she did. So, we need to get people that are going to get their hands dirty. Get your hands dirty, get things done. The country will develop. We don't need government in this country. We don't. Just get out of the way. Give us the policy, get out of the way. You want to tax solar. Government wants to tax solar. I don't know what to say, guys. Guys, we'll spend some good time here. I think we had some good conversations. CY, thanks for hopping in here and doing us the honors of taking us back to the macroeconomics. I just shared, for most of you that were asking me on Twitter, where am I getting this resource number that I'm quoting? I shared on Twitter, if you go on Twitter, I just shared it out. You'll see the CBN's projection from, I think so, 2020. You see how we've made our revenues. I said Tinubu got money from crude oil. I see a lot of people saying it's not true, Kalu. Tinubu got his money from non-oil. Tinubu said he got money from non-oil. I'm not giving you projection. I'm giving you actual. Tinubu got the money from crude oil. Non-oil does nothing for Nigeria. If you go on Twitter, you'll see that I shared it on Twitter. If it's not there, tell me. I'll share. I don't know if I can share for YouTube, folks. That's really what it is, guys. Nigeria simply went back to crude oil, and we were able to grow from there. Brent crude, I'm seeing CY is still 60. Again, guys, Brent crude is 60.22. Why in God's name are you doing a budget with 64? Why? Do it with 60 at least. If the oil gets to 65, that's fine. You've made buffers. But if Brent crude today, this is before the invasion of Venezuela, it's at 60. Before the invasion, it's at 60. Why are you doing your budget at 64? I mean, you have to be a genius. You have to bring the thing down. And why is it important? If you don't bring it down, you are going to say you want to spend all this money and you don't have the revenues. Nigeria's problem is that we want to spend money we don't have. We don't have this money. Why are we spending 54 or 58 trillion? Why are we spending? We don't have the money. Why are we borrowing 2 trillion a month? Why? I see the road from Sokoto to Badagry. It's beautiful. It's cement. I want it, but you can't afford it. I want a Rolls Royce, but I can't afford it. You can't say because the road is good, you go and do it. You don't have the money for it. You have Badagry to Lagos Intercontinental Highway. You have Lagos to Calabar Coastal Road. You don't have the money. Look at your budget. You have a deficit of 23 trillion, which means you're going to borrow 2 trillion a month. This is just because you're going to sell oil at 64. So if oil is 60, this deficit will go up maybe 3 trillion a month. How can you have a budget like this? How? It doesn't make any sense. Why are you borrowing? Tinubu was giving, let me give you figures. When Buhari left office, he gave Tinubu revenues of 7 trillion. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tinubu took that revenues from 7 trillion to 38. Sorry, to 20. To 20, going from 7 to 20. When Buhari left office, he gave Tinubu spending of 6.9 trillion. 6.9. Guess what Tinubu is spending today? What I mean to that's 2014, 2024. Guess what Tinubu spent in 2024? 38 trillion. Or what? How do you go from 7 trillion spend to 38 trillion? Somebody says, Kalu, the spend is from devaluation. Yes, but he also got revenues from devaluation. Yes, the naira lost value, but he got more money from the oil too. So it balanced out. Why are we spending 38 trillion for God's sake when we are borrowing? Why? Why not stop the spending? I mean, come on, guys. And then when we borrow money, we don't use for infrastructure. Tinubu allocated 13 trillion for infrastructure in 2024. He only gave them 6 trillion, but he borrowed 12 trillion. Why are you borrowing 12 trillion when you're only giving them 6 trillion? Where did that money go to? Where's that money? This is not actual numbers from the federal of Nigeria. So it's a big problem. And I think the main thing today was just to highlight the fact that the macroeconomics don't make sense, right? That's, if I could summarize it for you guys listening, the macroeconomics don't make sense. If Nigeria does not reduce her fiscal ambitions, it's going to affect you individually. So I will ask you as an individual investor to be very careful about how you spend money in 2026. Remember, one of the exemptions in 2026 is that if you have foreign revenues, it's tax-free, which means if I take my Nigerian naira and I invest in an asset that pays me dollars as a dividend, and I bring that dividend back to Nigeria through approved channels, that dividends I'm bringing back is tax-free. Take advantage of that. Make sure you are diversifying your revenue sources away from naira into other avenues. And like Cyrus said at the very beginning, 30%. Make sure you watch before you leap. This is not a year you want to take quick actions. Make sure you are watching before you leap in. The government's books are not good because they are not planning properly. They have large ambitions. You've got to be a bit more prudent than the government. I think they are depending on the tax reform to bring them money. But the tax reform, the money is going to go to states, not federal. Why Tinubu is not saying this, I don't know. There are so many of these guys on Twitter that are not explaining to people that the tax money is going to states, not federal. Tinubu is giving you, it's your state, go and hold your state government on their neck. They are the ones getting this. So if you know this macro picture, it should guide you in how you are investing. Don't be too quick to invest. Don't be too quick to take large risks. Take it easy. Let's see how the first term plays out. Let's see what's going to happen before we take issues. Big E, you hopped in real quick. Let's see what you have to say before we close on the space. Big E, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Kalu, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Mr. Kalu, first of all, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Thank you for so much you've been doing here. I really grateful around that. So you just mentioned something, and that's actually why I even popped it. You talked about getting earning abroad as regards products. So I was going to ask, does it also include for people who work remotely? Probably work remotely and you're paid from abroad.
Yeah.
Is that also free from tax?
Yeah, that's an export. What they are saying is that any export earnings is tax free today, right? That's what they're saying. So what you want to make sure that you are earning that money outside Nigeria. So let's say you work remotely. Let's say you work for outsourcing, right? Make sure that you are paid abroad. So don't do job and somebody will pay you in Nigeria, right? Make sure you are paid abroad. Then bring that money through approved channels back to Nigeria. So if you are paid abroad, I think Western Union is an approved channel. Just let the money come to Nigerian bank, then key it in your income and say, hey, this is income from export. Yes, it's tax-free. Tax exempt.
Okay, so sorry, just to clarify, when you mean paid abroad, does that include probably paid through a fintech, maybe probably a fintech app or anything or whatever?
Yeah, just show that the money came from abroad. Because sometimes somebody will hire you in Nigeria, then you work for Amazon, but then you are paid in Nigeria the equivalent. So they will pay you maybe 2 million naira through your GT bank. They'll just credit GT bank. That's not what they want. You see what I'm saying? You might work for a company that's outsourcing you to Amazon, then Amazon will pay them, then they will pay you naira. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that you are earning that from your fintech app abroad or your DOM account or your bank account or money transfer, just to have that trail, because the language means any money remitted through approved channels is tax exempt. So you want to make sure that you can show that remittance. That's where I'm going to with that. Yeah. Hey, Austin. Yes.
Is medical importing drugs, medicals, is it also tax free? Just like agricultural products, probably importing.
What tax? When you import, you don't pay tax. You pay excise duties. You pay VAT. So what tax are you talking about? Because if your company imports drugs, then the company has corporate income tax, which you can net off any costs on that. You understand? So you have to be very specific. Are you importing as a person, as an individual? As a company or as an individual? As a company, your company has its own tax allowances, tax exempt, and expenses you can back out of the income from those taxes. So you want to be very, very clear on that. But VAT, I don't think will apply on certain basic necessities like food and all that if it's raw form. So make sure you clear that up with your tax person. Yeah.
That's clear. Thank you so much.
Hey, welcome, man. Austin, real quick, then we'll close.
Oh yes. I just want to ask this question before you close, please. At the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned, CBN's GDP projection at 4.49% for 2026. Yeah. And you also reminded us that this is not very ambitious, looking at an annual growth rate of 3%.
Yeah.
I'm worried about one thing. Since our population figure since 2006 has been based on estimates, do you think these are real things to rely on? I don't know. Because the last time Nigeria conducted a population census and then put our population at approximately more than 40 million, I think it was in 2006, about 20 or so years ago. I'm wondering, in your own opinion, what do you think is the real reason why we are not conducting official census figures in Nigeria to guide our national planning in a correct way, in a more reliable way? Do you think, is this conflict or is it clear or is it logic?
Yeah, I got your question, but you had an audio call. I had to mute you. I think for census in Nigeria is not an economic tool. It's a. Let me mute you. You're still speaking. I'm going to mute you. Also, you have a call coming in, so I'm muting you. So again, I'm just trying to be. Just trying to be blunt. Just trying to be blunt to people and give you guys the truth. I did a report on census nearly 10 years ago. I looked at the census figures from the last census was done 1969. No, 1958. Before Nigeria was independent, there was a census. So from 58 till I believe it was the last census, 2014 or so. What I found out was shocking. Nigeria's census has not changed. There is no change in the census. The numbers have gone up, but there is no change. According to Nigeria's census, there is no migration from the north to the south, from the east to the west. Nothing. Everyone that was born in Nigeria in 1960 has stayed where they are. Nigeria is the only country on earth that more people live away from the coast than live on the coast. Nigeria is the only nation on earth that more people live away from the coast than live on the coast. There is no change. So you see the number will go from 10 million to 50 million, but the percentage has not changed. It's still 55% to one region. From that time till today, the same percentage. So what's that tell you? If you 55% is a magic number. If you are smart and you look at things in Nigeria, 55% will come up everywhere. There are 55% of this, 55% of that, 55% of this. It does not change. And that's why the census is useless in Nigeria. Because when you do a census, the number will go up, but the demographics don't change. Lagos doesn't get new population. Lagos State, I got Nigerian census, does not get new population. People don't come to Lagos. It's the same number. I'm giving you the numbers, and if you doubt it, pick up the census, compare two census, and see the percentage change. In America, every year they do census, and why does number not change? Because in Nigeria, we share revenues according to population and land mass. So if you want to share FAC, this FAC we're talking about, or VAT, how do we share VAT and FAC? How? Your minimum responsibility of state is 40%. That means once you are a state, you're going to get 40%. You want to do anything, you're going to get 40%. Then your population is 30%. So just being a state with large population, you get 70%. What about education, water, health? All this combined is less than 5%. Education, water, health, access to all that combined, primary school is less than 5%. So if you're a governor, you are incentivized to have more children, not to train your children. This is the Nigerian revenue allocation formula. I'm telling you, I didn't write it. That's why you will see fights on population. This tax bill you guys are talking about, when did you guys hear about it? Wasn't it when governors started talking about sharing VAT? Because Tinubu wanted to change how VAT was shared. He said, let's do VAT by 60% derivation. The governors went crazy. Because today it's 70% from minimum responsibility of states, 30% from population. He said, let's do 60% derivation. It went crazy. That's how you guys knew about Tax Reform Act. If not, you would have heard about it. When the governors were fighting about derivation, once he gave the governors what they wanted, they went back. They don't care. They don't care. They don't really care about the tax reform anymore. That's the point. So Nigeria is not structured properly. If you're a governor and you spend your money educating your children in primary school, giving them clean water, and giving them health care, you only get about 4% from FAC. But if you have more babies, put them on the streets, you get 30%. If you just the state, you get 40%. If you not understand what I mean. That's how the country is structured. That's why the census are very, very important. So, because we always fight, we'll never agree on the census. But Nigeria's census does not make any sense whatsoever. Lagos State had to go and do their own census a few years ago, and their census showed them having a bigger number than Kano, which is where the fight was. But how can you say Kano has more than Lagos? Doesn't make any sense, right? So Lagos, of course, in my view, has higher population. So Lagos had to go and do their own census a long time ago, and they were the largest population. So Nigerian census is like Nigerian unemployment numbers. The numbers are there, but if you rely on them, good luck. That's what I'll say, Biggie. There are other things you can use to know population. You can use number of calls on GSM, where the calls going to. You can use number of cars in that state, who has cars, by number of applications for JAMB. All those are proxy to population. If you use those numbers, it gives you a totally different number than population. I mean, JAMB scores, you can say, okay, they don't go to school. Okay, what about primary school enrollment? They don't go to school. So what do you use? You have to be a bit, I don't know. But that's just a funny country. Let's leave it that way. All right, folks, thank you so much. I think we had a great space today. Again, we'll share knowledge, which is always our intent. We want to share personal finance, the economy, and of course, finance with you every week. And we're leading you up. We're doing now the macroeconomics. By next week, we're going to bring in the finance guys. Hey, where should we invest our money? Should we do bonds? Should we do shares? And all that. Nigerian shares last year, 2025, did 51%. They beat inflation. So if you bought Nigerian shares, the index, you beat inflation. If you did bonds, you did dollar, you didn't beat inflation. If you did dollar in Nigeria, you didn't beat inflation. But if you held dollar, you beat inflation. So we have to get the experts in here to tell us how we should invest our monies in 2026. That's what we're going to do next Sunday. So we've gone from macro now. We're now going to the micro, and then we'll keep on doing the tax reform and all that. My tax reform story for you is that the money is going to your state governors, so go and hold your state governors to account. I know federal is a big target. I talk about federal all the time, but hold your state governments to account. They're going to get nearly 90% of VAT. They're going to get payee. They're going to share CIT, so they should also account for this huge money that they're going to get. On that note, guys, let me let you guys go. It's going to be a great Monday for you guys, a great week. Make sure to take advantage of that plan. I'm going to list my top tips for 2026, what you should need to do in 2026 that's going to also guide you. It's all about just having knowledge of a crowd, right? So if the crowd is saying something, the crowd is usually right. If the crowd is, they're usually right. So try to have the safety and the comfort of a crowd in where you are investing and what you are hearing. In the Bible, there is safety in numbers. So try to ask people. It doesn't have to be Kalu. Ask people what they think about stuff that's going on. The crowd is usually right. Let's leave it that way. All right, folks, take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys here next week, 7 p.m. Do get my book, Let's Talk About Your Money is Perfect. We had the tax law in my book 2 years before they passed the Tax Reform Act. All the exemptions are already in my book. So get the book, read it. It will bless you. Have a good one, guys. Take care, and bye.